Just a note for anyone that might be joining the program right now. You're listening to Salt and Light Radio. I'm Pedro Guevara-Mann, and we're speaking with Harry Nigh about circles of support for ex-offenders. Now, so let's maybe talk a little bit about kind of the mechanics. So how do these circles of support work? It's not just anyone. It's like, I'm an ex-offender, I want to apply. Is there what's the process?
Well, it varies from place to place. I should just say that within 3 months of Charlie's coming out, a second offender came to Toronto, and a second circle was formed.
Mm.
And then we realized maybe we have something that could be a gift to the community. That the faith community, instead of joining all of the strident voices that says keep them locked up for life, could in fact do something creative and healing. And so the program then spread across Canada. It's now in the States, and in the United Kingdom, and now in Australia. And what we have found in our research studies is that men who have a circle of support have a 70% reduction in sexual reoffending rate.
Really?
So it's a dramatic grassroots movement that has dramatic effect.
And sorry, just with pedophiles, is it almost 100% reoffending if there is no support?
No, I think that there's many ways of looking at those statistics, but actually
Okay.
it's not that huge, and in terms of common perspective.
Okay. So let's just go back to how the circle works. So how many people are we talking
They're
about?
usually 4 or 5 in the
Okay.
circle, and then around it, if you like, there is a kind of an invisible circle of community support: police, psychologists, other experts, mental health people who could be called upon.
Okay, so everybody's working together.
That's right.
And
the
what do
circle meets once a week, and
Okay.
then the individuals in the circle will try to contact that person so that he's covered every day.
And sort of what are the steps that have to happen before the circle can be formed?
Very good. The man inside prison has been selected, if you like, or pinpointed by either chaplain, social worker. He applies and is kind of vetted there by staff now of circles.
Uh-huh.
When he has to sign a kind of covenant with the group,
Okay.
and which outlines what each is responsible for. And his whole record is laid before the group so that they know there's no secrets. And so there's this, and then when the meetings happen, it's a lot of practical help. A lot of men reoffend when they experience rejection in relationships, or when they just get sick and tired if they've particularly been a long time in prison. Hey, at least prison is safe. So
Yeah.
a lot of this is practical help. Guys who are illiterate, helping them file for for disability support, for example, or welfare. All of these kinds of practical consideration. What do I do if my cat is sick and I don't have money for the veterinarian? You'd be surprised at how many of these little piddly incidents can build into something greater that says to this man, I'm not wanted.
Right. And now, like someone like me, I'm just a guy.
Yep.
I want to help. Hey, this sounds like something I could volunteer. Can I apply, or
Yes, of
do
course.
I have to
Anyone
have
can apply. Now, here in Ontario, we have a central project in the Toronto area, but there are various projects across Canada, and if anyone wants to check on it in Canada, they would just go to the Government of Canada Correctional Services website.
Yeah.
In the various states, and in England, there's a foundation now being formed called Circles UK.
Okay.
And so there are various mechanisms, but training is provided, oversight is provided, so that a person is not alone.
Okay, and if the person, you mentioned the covenant, if the covenant is breached or anything like that, would that mean that the offender or the person that is being supported would end up necessarily back in prison or out of the circle, or can that happen?
We call that person actually the core member of the circle.
Okay.
And if conditions are breached, it depends entirely on what the condition is. It may mean that he goes back to prison, even for a short period of time. But we've had people commit major offenses, much to our grief, but not many.
Okay.
And sometimes the bottom line for circles is no more victims. So there have been occasions when members of the circle will call the police first, and they don't even know an incident has happened.
Okay, I see.
So there was not only support and celebration of this man's God-given identity as a child of God.
Mm-hmm.
Which he has not experienced much of his life,
Yeah.
but there's also accountability. Hey, if there are children being threatened here,
Yes.
there's a community safety.
Yes.
That's first.
Now, Harry, we're almost out of time, but I
Right.
did want to ask you, because I've heard you speak previously about how this is a ministry of friendship.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds to me that it is ministry, that you're actually like, what separates some volunteer that is part of this circle of support from, you know, a social worker, except the fact that they don't have a degree? Like, is it real friendship? Like, does it, or can the relationship change at some point to real? You mentioned that Charlie came to your house for supper.
Yeah.
That's what you do with a friend, but is that what? Do you know what I'm asking?
Absolutely, and I think it's a central question. This is a grassroots program, at least here in the Canadian context, because fellows don't trust the system. They don't trust social workers. They don't trust people who are paid to care for them.
Right.
And so they don't trust volunteers, but over time they do. And what happens is a relationship moves from that of kind of a service, of a ministry, to that of deep bonding. Last night we had a service on the death of one of our men, who we've worked with for 10 years. Those were real tears in that group. There was real sorrow because Jim had gotten into our hearts, and he was like a brother to us.
Right. So it doesn't start
Absolutely.
as friendship, but eventually it can become that.
That's right. Yeah.
We're totally out of time, Harry, but this has been very interesting. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of comments and response from people out there, because it's what you're doing is certainly, it's grassroots, but it's not a lot of people are doing it. Not a lot of people, I think, agree with it. But thank you so much for what you're doing and for joining us today.
It was a pleasure.
All right. That was Mennonite pastor or minister Harry Nigh, who is also the community chaplain in the Central Ontario Parole District for Correctional Services Canada, and he's one of the pioneers in the international restorative justice movement. Now, what do you think? Could you do this kind of work? Do you have any experiences with some of these most marginalized people in our society? And what do you think about extending them our friendship? Send us an email to radio@saltandlighttv.org.